Good morning. We are welcoming you to activities for people living at home with dementia. We are proud to offer this series with funding from the Area Agency on Aging and the United Way of Tarrant County. These programs are recorded and are made available for viewing through a YouTube channel for future use. I am Martha Brown, your host for today's activities. We are going to visit today with Peggy Spear from the Amon Carter Museum of American Art. Peggy is bringing us art that has to do with fences. Can you imagine what fences she might bring? Peggy, take us up to some fences.
All right. Well, this is a topic that we were supposed to cover last month, but life happened. And so now we're looking at fences. And all right, can y'all see it?
Oops.
Yes.
Artful Moments. Yep.
All right. So
fences.
As y'all know, I often just pick a word and then see what happens when I look in our database. And this was one of the words that I thought, surely I can make fences work. And we had more fences than I knew what to do with. So we've got an interesting selection of fences for us to look at today. This one, I know, this one, it looks so cute and cozy. It's an Elliott Porter photograph, and he took it in Iceland. So Yetta had a pretty visceral reaction when she first saw it. What jumped out at you first, Yetta?
Oh, well, of course, the white fence, but I love these houses that are covered in dirt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know, there's something about them that looks so cozy to me, I can't even stand it. Mm-hmm. This is in Iceland. Have any of you been to Iceland before?
Iceland? No. That's cold country.
Yes, it is very cold. I've been once, and as in any Scandinavian country, we went in the middle of the summer, and it was light the entire time we were there. So it was a very trippy experience, having never been that far north. But these little houses just line the countryside. It is the cutest thing, and restaurants are in houses like this, but this is a common occurrence in Iceland. And Porter went again with his son. We've looked at pictures where he went to China with his son. This was another trip where his son joined him, and his son Jonathan, and they traveled throughout Iceland photographing. And most of the photography was of, classic Porter, of the flora, the fauna, the volcanoes, the geology, the hot springs. Very few instances of the human hand involved, which is kind of, his hallmark. But here, we're not seeing people, but we are seeing human hand with this picket fence and dirt house.
Yeah, it is in July. It's still cold.
Yeah.
So,
cold country.
Paulette, did you say something?
I don't like cold country. No, I wouldn't want to go to cold country like that.
This might be a little too chilly for your bones then.
Well, I bet it would be. Yeah. But it's beautiful looking at the photo here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's so good at the saturating of the colors, which parts, as any countryside, when it's very lush, has that dark, dense green, and he was able to kind of capture that through his developing process.
But all the homes and the buildings in Iceland have hot water with no hot water heaters.
Do they get them from the springs?
Yeah, it's all thermic. Whatever comes up from the ground.
Yeah,
because it's
pretty cool. They make some parts of Iceland have really, really hot sand and soil, and they'll bake their rye bread in the sand in front of the house.
Bake the bread in the sand.
Yeah, so I mean, like, you can see the sand and dirt and mud bubbling, like, ooh, it's a hot one. But then they pull out like a big old metal bread bin, and they flip it over, and ooh, it is some good bread. So it is, even though it's freezing cold in the air, they've got that hot to warm them up. And so with this particular photograph, I mean, there's not much to say about this photograph in general, just it's a photograph. The photographs he took in Iceland, he didn't develop until about 17 years later. And his son wrote an essay that accompanied the photographs on this excursion. So just another one of Porter's photographs that just, I think, are really beautiful. We've seen so many different subjects of his that it feels like there are very few things he didn't photograph, but anyway, just something different of his. All right, so we're leaving this cute picket fence to talk about a very Western type of fence.
Wire.
Barbed wire, yep.
Yeah, barbed wire.
So tell me what you see in this particular scene. We pointed out the barbed wire fence.
Yep.
The cowboy.
Cowboy riding around, inspecting it to see if it's got any breaks in it.
Say that again one more time, Don. Sorry, someone walked by my office right as you were saying, and I couldn't
It's
hear
a cowboy. Looks like he's riding along the fence line to see if there's any breaks in it from cattle or something else.
Riding along the fence. This is somewhere in Texas.
Really?
He's a regionalist painter, so a lot of his Peter Hurd's paintings, regionalist means kind of very specific to an area. It has a certain feel in that area. And so this is somewhere, you know, he was Texas, New Mexico. So while we don't know the specific ranch this cowboy's riding, you probably got a feeling that it was somewhere in South, whether it was Texas or New Mexico. It has a very Southern feel to it.
When I was living in New Mexico, Peter Hurd was living on a ranch in Tinney, New Mexico.
Oh, okay.
They had an artist community there. Henriette Wyeth. It was quite a little community right there in this little teeny town of Tinney, halfway between Roswell, New Mexico, and Ruidoso.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, he was from Roswell, so that fits the bill. How cool! And he was actually very influenced by Wyeth, so that they were living in an artist colony together. That again, their connections are all there.
Hey, Phil, how do you spell Tinney?
Phil, he's asking Tinney.
Tinnie, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Peggy, of course, I'm going to point something weird out.
I love it when you do. Point it out, Myra.
There's a store called the Tinney Mercantile, which had a really, really fabulous restaurant in it. Actually, I think it was Peter Hurd that organized the restaurant there, but brought in a chef from New York. And
wow.
I mean, I had probably one of the greatest dinners I've ever eaten in my life in that restaurant.
Oh my goodness, how wonderful. Myra, what were you observing?
There's 5 strands of barbed wire. Usually there's only 4.
Yeah.
Oh, what a very good observation.
So it means something comes through frequently and they're really trying to secure their properties.
Oh, interesting. I would never have known that. What a cool observation. And these fences too, Remington often included not often. When the fall of the cowboy happened, he would include barbed wire fences because a lot of people perceived the end of the Wild West was when fences went up. And there was no grazing or ranching in a kind of nomadic way that once existed because these fences were now in. And so Remington has a famous painting, which I did not include in this because we've looked at it in the past, but the fall of the cowboy is what he says is the fence. So the cowboy can no longer roam free. Here you can see he's running the line probably, you know, protecting property. It doesn't look like he's actually hurting anything at all. We don't even see the
He's just the fence rider.
Yep. That's all he's doing.
Now, Hans would like to know if it's water there in the background.
It looks to be.
Might be a stock
lake,
pond.
or is it sand or
a stock pond?
Stock pond, yeah.
Probably some sort of stock
Or
pond. Yeah.
tank.
Yeah, okay. Or for the cattle, yeah, to drink.
Yeah, and this was painted in 62, but it doesn't have anything indicative of it being in the 60s or the 1890s. I mean, it just feels kind of timeless. We don't see telephone wires. We don't see, you know, things that 5G poles or whatever, you know, we're not seeing things that are markers of current society. So there is a little bit of that nostalgia that he's referencing given the time he's painting it. We're not seeing the herds, but we're not seeing modern life.
Mexico.
And so he, as you know, Phil was kind of saying, Peter Hurd, you know, lived in this area. He sold his first painting when he was in military school, but he was really committed to painting the landscape, figural and genre scenes of this part of the world, and made a successful living doing it.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. He's left the fence, the gates open on the fence, so it must not be any cattle that's going to get from one side to the other.
Yeah.
They used to get such big parcels of land.
Yeah, but where is the gate?
The gate is these two poles that stick up.
Okay, it just looks so weird with when you zoom in, when you see the barbed wire, Don.
Yeah.
It just looks as if it's there with not a stick at the other end to close it with.
Well, it looks as if you can see where whoever the ranch owner or fence builder like knotted off the barbed wire and just kind of left free.
Oh, I get you. So you move that over to the other side and then the wire.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you look closely, the fence line goes beyond the pond.
Yes, I see that.
Yeah.
So it's a very huge expanse of land.
Yeah.
My guess, it could have been something like, you know, depending on the time, I'm thinking more of a buffalo herd or something like that, or wild horses.
Could be, yeah.
They're trying to keep their
stock,
grazing pasture lands, you know, from being overrun.
But you know what? Speaking from experience of my grandfather who had a few cattle, he used to put that kind of the fencing across creeks because the cows were very good at just walking the creek to get out. So he had it so it set up so the water would run away and let the water through. But the cattle couldn't get back the other way.
Yeah, I mean, all of these it's all speculation because we really don't know anything about this land or this rider or what lives on the land.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to leave our fence rider, and we're going to a very different type of fence, a very hot topic type of fence.
Oh,
the wall in
cabbage crop and wall.
Down in Brownsville, Texas, along the border.
Yeah, that's an ugly wall.
The cabbages are gorgeous.
The cabbage, it's a really beautiful picture. Richard Mizrak, I've had the pleasure of meeting. He is a photographer based out of California, I want to say. And a few years ago, we had an exhibition here at the museum entitled Border Cantos. And it was Richard Mizrak, a photographer, working with a sound artist. Galindo was his name. They worked together to put on an exhibition that really spoke to this liminal experience, life, migration that's happening at the border. And So Richard took a lot of photographs of what the wall looked like, of places along the border where there were water stations or abandoned backpacks and things that you would find during that in that area that alluded to the migration. He never photographed the people, it was the traces of people. And then Galindo was the one who was collecting some of these found objects and then taking instruments out of the objects. So here, this photograph is massive. It's 60 inches or 80 inches by 60 inches. So it took up a very large presence. You know, and I think, in my opinion, having been in front of it, it was sort of speaking to this dwarfing of you as a human and how big that picture felt, kind of mimicking this idea of how big that wall might feel when you're standing right in front of it, kind of simulating that type of experience. But the sense of scale really does overpower your experience with it.
Kind of disappears off on the horizon.
Yes, yeah, and he, I'm looking at my notes because there's a lot has been said. There's a very massive catalog tied to the series of photographs for this exhibition, but it's reminiscent of a defense barrier that the Germans used in the protecting of Normandy. Yeah. So you're getting kind of that sense of a war, even though this is, you know, there's more history to the materials or look of this fence than just what we're seeing. And it kind of disappears into the horizon. You know, this could be the illusion of some of these people who enter kind of disappear into the population or disappear from, you know, kind of off the grid. But there's a lot of political undertones with this artwork that, while it's a beautiful image, the more you dive into it.
The thing that blows my mind is how do you get that big a picture through an inkjet printer? That's been a massive inkjet printer.
It isn't, he has certain printers that he really liked working with, as do a lot of large scale photographers who are working with an inkjet. They end up finding, kind of the same way with a lithography printer or anybody who's working on paper, the photographer will often find a printer who does a really good job at printing their works. So it's not typically the photographer who's printing their work.
The haze is probably irrigation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know the cabbages, the coloring is just so beautiful.
Mm-hmm. It is.
And so when he took this picture, if I'm reading, it says there were during the wall along the border has varying materials, and the wall's there and then the wall goes away and then the wall starts up again and it's a different material or a different look. So this is what this particular part of the wall looks like in Brownsville. And there are about 2,000 miles of borderline, and as of 2020, 670 miles, I believe, had wall built.
Mm-hmm.
So a very different type of fence.
Mm-hmm.
A fence, again, to keep out. It's not like the cute little picket fence we saw in Iceland. This has a very charged meaning.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got Mizrak, and he's still alive and producing work today, not through this series anymore, I don't believe, but in other topical or current issues, he's very active. All right, we've got another not political, but another sociological situation that we have an artist commenting on. And we've looked at Anthony Hernandez in the past. He was the one that photographed the bus stops in Los Angeles.
Oh, really?
The people sitting on the bench with no cover. It was a black and white photograph. This is the same photographer. And this was, I'm going to show you two photographs from this exhibition that were part of an exhibition called Discarded. And it was speaking to the housing bubble burst when the market crashed in 2008. And so these photographs were taken in areas right outside LA. This particular one's California City. Rosamond is another one. Little pockets of what were going to be communities that just arrested development completely when the housing market crashed. So you can see we're looking through a fence.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of things jump out at you first?
Poverty.
Say it again, Yetta.
Poverty.
Poverty.
This looks junky to me.
Junky. Yeah.
The trailer does not look level.
Mm-mm.
That would be disconcerting if I lived there.
Yeah. Well, no one's living there now. No one actually ended up moving there. They basically halted production and just, as the title indicates, discarded it. So it is trash, junk. I mean, like developers just completely
That's what it looks
like. From these projects, which, speaking to the larger problem of this American, whether it's American or just modern mindset, that everything's disposable and doesn't matter what you do with it. And so, you know, if you don't need it anymore, just walk away. And so that was happening at all of these different sites. And I think the fence around it, again, it's not a pretty fence. It's got the barbed wire on the top.
No.
Yeah, it's not a welcoming fence.
No, not at all.
Keep out.
Keep out.
Yeah.
And in a junkyard way, kind of, to use Paulette's word, it's not, oh, I actually want to go into the space. If the fence were gone, it would still look junky, but it wouldn't feel so threatening. This has a sense of, like, maybe not spooky is the right word, but uncomfortable, oof, I don't want to go in there. So here's one photograph, and here's another one from that same series. I mean, it's just like, it feels very hastily put up. A poor attempt to keep people out.
This fence is not as threatening as the last one.
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm. The last one.
It doesn't look inviting.
You're right. It doesn't.
The last one really looks like that trailer looks like a construction trailer, because some of the materials on the ground would not come from that trailer.
No, you're right.
Okay, so it's like they had a project they were working on and they left the trailer.
Yeah.
They just abandoned everything.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Probably so.
Yeah, I mean, and you see the smashed patio furniture. Mm-hmm. So it almost feels like a sense of like urgency, that it was just like, okay, gone. I'm not even dealing with like trying to tidy up what's here. It was just like a ghost town.
You just jump in your vehicle and go.
Yeah, we're done here. We can't pay for anything. Shut it down. We're out. And the same thing here, just tires, planter.
Yeah.
This one sapling, it looks like, as some of these new developments open, these trees kind of look like they fell from the sky because they're all so young and new. It's like they started doing the landscape. They're like, nope, we're out.
Yeah. I mean, there's absolutely really no color in this.
Mm-mm. It feels
very drab.
Did you say flat, Yetta?
Yeah, I said drab.
Drab, yeah. And that was kind of his aesthetic with this particular series. Very flat. There's depth. When you look at it, there's depth. I mean, we see the mountains, we see the foreshortening, we see the post coming at us. So there's this idea of depth, but the way things are just no real color, it feels very flat.
Even though
Oh, go ahead, Martha.
Even though you can tell that the sky is blue and the mountains are blue, it looks like a black and white. It is so drab.
Mm-hmm. But snow on the mountains.
You're right. There is snow. And to what you're saying, yes, it's a blue sky, and blue skies typically indicate, you know, a happiness or a cheerfulness. There's the beauty of the land, but the horror of the treatment of the land. So it's a very interesting dynamic. And this is you know, the things that are on the land are not welcoming, as you all have said. It feels like junk, and it feels like we're not welcome in this space. So this was, you know, he had several photographs from this series. It's a really beautiful series speaking to.
I've never heard of that town. Rosamond, California.
Yeah, and there's like a number of little developments he was focusing on right outside, like kind of nested in that same area in California. He's a California guy and lives in LA.
The name,
oh, go ahead.
The name Rosamond.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's so unusual and odd. Rosamond, you know.
Much more unusual than Lubbock.
Say that again.
No.
Great, Phil.
Wait, I didn't hear you said, Phil.
He said it's more romantic than Lubbock.
Oh, my husband's from Lubbock, and I've still never been.
You've not been to Lubbock?
Mm-mm. We've been married for 5 years. I've never been.
Lubbock. I grew up in Lubbock.
Did you really? Okay.
I did. Yes.
Well, you can tell me about it, and that might be as close as I get to going out there.
Well, I'll tell you right now, flat land, cotton fields.
Yes.
I mean, and sandstorms. Oh my word, they were awful back when I was growing up.
Well, you know what? Then this probably isn't too different than Lubbock, because it looks like a very dry, flat place. So
it's actually between Bakersville and Victorville, so it's just north of Los Angeles.
Yeah,
and not much of a fence.
Dry area.
Well, Lubbock was a town, at least, you know.
Yeah.
If you've ever been to Texas Tech, at least they have a wonderful college there.
Yeah, I'm not seeing much of a university life happening here.
No.
This is the University of Hard Knocks.
Yeah, I think you're right, John. All right, we've got one more artwork, and because I thought we would just end on a beautiful photograph. But here we've got Weston capturing a couple of different fences in Wyoming. Or this is actually in California.
You
see vegetation.
So this is in Yosemite, and we see a rail fence, we see a meadow, we see a broken fence. But it doesn't feel junky. It doesn't, you know, we're seeing a broken fence here. It has a totally different feel.
Yes.
Even though we're seeing broken fences.
It's like more it has weathered. It's a weathered fence.
Yes.
It feels like it has a story.
Yeah.
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 Pour out like me.
Go. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye. I have to go too.
Okay,
Bye,
Nancy.
Nancy.
Bye.
Bye, Nancy.
Yeah. Bye.
So what is this thing in the upper right-hand corner? Is that a windmill?
It's a windmill.
Yeah, it looks to be.
It looks like
Broken windmill.
Broken windmill.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't seem, I mean, I'm assuming by this point, it's a national park. So I'm assuming there aren't people still operating it as if it were a farm on private land, because it is in national park land. I don't know that though, but Weston was really interested in photographing the people and places of California. And so this is in California. I mean, the same, just like Anthony Hernandez, very different parts of California, but similar topics in terms of, you know, things that are kind of abandoned or no longer functioning, but his has a more beautiful not that the other one's not beautiful. I'm trying to think of a very different lens capturing this type of image.
Over to the right of the windmill, it looks like it's a different kind of fence. It's a much lower fence.
Yeah. Yeah, this is like, it looks like this is slats stacked. This is a rail fence.
Yep.
You've got ones then almost like a picket fence. There's a lot of fencing happening here.
Yeah.
And then I think the flowers, even though, you know, it's black and white, it adds a warmth to this
softness.
Image. Yeah.
This picture has a nostalgic feel to me.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a good word.
Whereas the others had a feeling of desolation, you know?
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah. Yeah, this feels more in line with, even though Elliott Porter's, we're not seeing people, it still has a warmth to it.
Yeah.
And again, things are pretty weathered looking. It's not the brightest colors, but there is color, and the lushness of the landscape contributes to that. And I feel like a very similar way, this Weston photograph.
Well, and even though it's black and white, you almost look and see the different colors of the trees. Your eye just plays that trick on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It does, doesn't it?
And it keeps you in within the frame, even though I don't know what you see first when you look in, but he does certain things like having these vertical posts that really keep you within. And while your eyes might be moving up, you're still keeping within this snippet of the farm, of the ranch.
How big is this, Peggy?
This particular photograph is 7x9, so not huge.
Okay.
The Hernandez, I don't have the dimensions, but these photographs were pretty large as well. Not as large as this photograph, but these took up a decent sized space on the wall.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, well, those are our fences. So we had quite a variety of fences today.
Yeah, sure did.
Nice.
Next week, we are doing familiar faces, which is slang for portraiture. I know we've done portraiture in the past, but we could do portraiture from now until the end of time at this museum. So we will look at some new faces next week, and most of them are actually on view right now. So they're on special exhibition, so that will be kind of fun to look at.
Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you, Peggy.
Good.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Looking forward. Yes. Weren't those very different kinds of fences?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, let's take a look at what's coming up tomorrow, and then we'll roll right into Fifth Street Cafe.
Okay.
You know, one of those whoops things. No, don't do that.
We're not going there very fast. Huh?
We're not. No, Paulette, we're not going there very fast. That's funny. Tomorrow is Thursday, and Emily Corbin is bringing us Nia Moving to Heal. She makes me feel like I can do things again. Y'all like that? Being able to do exercise on the chair?
Yeah, it's very relaxing.
It is to me too. That's right.
I won't be there tomorrow, but Hans will.
Okay. We'll let him exercise in the chair along with us.
Good.
Absolutely.